The sun dipped low, painting the quiet suburban street in warm shades of amber and rose. Sofía leaned against her old navy blue hatchback, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. Across from her, Noah stood with her hands in her jacket pockets, her eyes fixed on Sofía with a look that was both admiring and vulnerable. "I can't believe we actually made it out here," Noah said, her voice trying to be casual but failing to hide her own nervousness. Sofía smiled, though her eyes betrayed a deep sense of hope. "Yeah, it's perfect, isn't it? Just us, the street, and, well, the sunset." She gestured toward the horizon, but her gaze kept returning to Noah. Noah let out a low, warm chuckle that made Sofía's chest tighten. "Perfect, huh? I think the sunset might have some competition." Sofía's cheeks warmed. She'd been dreaming of this moment for what felt like forever. Now that it was here, it felt both surreal and completely inevitable. She stepped closer, the cool evening air brushing against her skin. She took in the small details she adored about Noah, the soft curve of her smile, the way her hair caught the last rays of sunlight, the subtle freckles across her nose. "Do you want to?" Sofía asked, her voice barely a whisper. Noah tilted her head, hope flickering in her eyes. "Want to what?" Sofía's heart raced. She closed the small distance between them, letting their warmth mingle. "This, us, here now. I've wanted to do this for so long." Noah's eyes softened, and a gentle smile spread across her face. "Then let's." They moved closer, and the world around them seemed to melt away. The first brush of their lips was tentative, delicate, full of promise. Sofía felt a shiver run down her spine as Noah deepened the kiss, her hands finding Sofía's waist, pulling her closer. The air hummed with the unspoken truth they had both been holding onto for weeks. They belonged together. For a moment, time stood still. The occasional car passed, its headlights cutting through the amber glow, but they didn't notice. All that existed was this shared warmth, the mingling of their breaths and the sweet electric pull of lips that had finally found each other. When they pulled back, their foreheads rested against one another. Sofía laughed softly, a sound full of relief and pure happiness. "You make it feel so easy," Noah chuckled, brushing a stray strand of hair from Sofía's face. "Easy? I think this is the hardest thing I've ever done. And yet, the best." Sofía tilted her head, pressing another soft kiss to Noah's cheek. "Then we should keep doing it the hard and the best together." Noah nodded, her hand finding Sofía's, their fingers interlacing as if they were made to fit. "Together," she echoed. The sun had finally disappeared, leaving a twilight glow that bathed the street in soft pinks and purples. Sofía rested her head on Noah's shoulder, feeling the steady rise and fall of her chest, a rhythm she wanted to learn by heart. "Promise me something?" Sofía asked, lifting her gaze. "Anything. Promise me we'll always remember this the first time. Not just the kiss, but this feeling, the butterflies, the excitement, everything." Noah smiled, pressing her forehead once more to Sofía's. "I promise. Every detail, every second. Always." As the evening deepened into night, they kissed again. This time it was longer, unhurried, letting the world exist only in the softness of their lips and the warmth of their hands. The car behind them, a silent witness to their beginning, became the backdrop for a love that had patiently waited to bloom. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Just Sofía, just Noah, and the quiet magic of a first kiss that would forever feel like the beginning of everything. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves a good romance. See you in the next one. The rain had been falling all afternoon, drumming softly against the windows of the little seaside cafe. Emma sat by the corner, her fingers curled around a steaming cup of tea, watching the gray waves crash against the rocks outside. She loved the ocean, not for its calm, but for its wild honesty. Everything felt real here, no pretenses, no masks, just the raw, untamed power of nature. It was in this quiet moment, with the sound of the rain as her only companion, that she saw her. Leela walked in, shaking droplets of rain off her vibrant umbrella, and for a fleeting second, the whole cafe seemed to pause, as if taking a collective breath. Emma had seen her before, of course, across the silent tables of the town library, browsing the fantasy section at the corner bookstore, and passing by on the old cobblestone streets that wound through their little seaside town. But seeing her up close, it was different. She was brighter, yet soft, like sunlight breaking through the cracks in heavy storm clouds. There was an energy about her that was both invigorating and deeply calming. Leela ordered a coffee, her movements graceful and sure. Then, she glanced around the cozy room, her eyes eventually landing on Emma. A small, genuine smile curled on her lips, and in that instant, Emma's heart did something strange. It skipped, then fluttered, like a trapped bird suddenly set free. It wasn't just physical attraction. It was more profound than that. It was an inexplicable pull, a magnetic force she couldn't name or understand. Something in Leela's gaze seemed to reach into a part of Emma that she kept hidden, a part she rarely showed to anyone. With her coffee in hand, Leela approached her table. "Mind if I sit here?" she asked, her voice as smooth as sea glass. She nodded toward the empty seat across from Emma. Emma's mind raced, trying to form a coherent sentence. "Of course," she managed to reply, striving for a casual tone while her hands, hidden beneath the table, trembled slightly. She hoped the dim lighting of the cafe hid the blush rising on her cheeks. For the first few minutes, their conversation was light, like foam on the ocean's surface. They talked about the relentless rain, the quirky rhythm of the cafe, and the charming stacks of second-hand books piled near the counter. But soon, the conversation drifted, as if guided by some unseen current, into deeper waters. They began talking about the things that truly mattered, their hopes for the future, the fears that held them back, and the secret, quiet corners of their hearts. "I've always loved the ocean," Leela confessed, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. "It's the one place where I can really think, where everything feels possible, even when it's stormy and chaotic." Her words resonated with Emma on a level she hadn't expected. A warm smile spread across Emma's face, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. She felt a connection with this near stranger that she hadn't felt in years. "I know exactly what you mean," she said, her voice soft but sure. "It's like, you can get lost in it, but in a good way. Like for a moment, the rest of the world doesn't matter, only the single moment you're in." Their eyes met across the small table, and the bustling world of the cafe seemed to shrink, condensing into the space between them. A silence fell, but it wasn't awkward or empty. It was charged, alive, electric, as if the universe itself had paused, holding its breath to watch what might happen next. Leela leaned forward just a fraction, her gaze intense and searching. "Do you want to see the ocean with me? Even if it's just a puddle-filled, stormy version of it?" The question hung in the air, a beautiful, fragile thing. Emma's heart raced, pounding against her ribs. There was no hesitation, no doubt. "I'd love that," she answered, her voice filled with a surprising certainty. They left their half-finished drinks behind and stepped out into the rain. The storm, which had seemed so dreary from inside, now felt like a blessing, a cleansing embrace. The cool water soaked their clothes almost instantly, but neither of them cared. A shared, giddy energy took over. They ran to the edge of the old wooden pier, laughing like children as the powerful waves crashed against the pilings, sending salty spray high into the air to mingle with the rain. Then, Leela reached out and took Emma's hand. It fit perfectly in hers, a warm, solid presence against the cool, damp air. It felt as if their hands had been made to hold each other all along. Standing at the edge of the world, with the roar of the sea as their soundtrack, Leela turned to her. "I don't usually do this," she admitted, her voice soft and vulnerable beneath the storm's fury. "But there's something about you." Emma shivered, though it wasn't from the cold. It was a tremor of recognition, of a feeling she had long forgotten was possible. "I feel the same way," she whispered back, her words almost carried away by the wind. And then, as if the world had finally given them its permission, Leela leaned in. Their lips met in a kiss that was tentative at first, testing, gentle, a question asked without words. But it quickly deepened, transforming into something both desperate and tender, a raw and honest expression of everything they had left unsaid. The rain poured down over them, drenching their hair and clothes, but it couldn't wash away the incredible warmth that bloomed between them. It was a kiss that felt like recognition, like coming home after a lifetime of wandering in the dark. When they finally, reluctantly, pulled away, both were breathless, their eyes locked in a shared moment of wonder. Leela gently brushed a wet strand of hair from Emma's face, her fingers lingering on her cheek, tracing a path of fire on her skin. "I've wanted to do that since the first time I saw you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Emma's heart swelled, a dizzying mixture of joy, profound relief, and pure awe. "Me too," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "I just didn't know if you felt the same." As if on cue, the storm began to ease, the heavy downpour softening to a gentle drizzle. A fragile light began to filter through the clouds. They stood on the pier, their hands still tightly entwined, watching the ocean shimmer under the newly subdued gray sky. It was as if the world had paused just for them, an infinite fragile moment suspended between two hearts that had just found each other. I think we're like drops in the ocean, Emma said softly, her gaze fixed on the endless horizon. Leela turned to her, a radiant smile illuminating her face. But even a single drop can make ripples, she replied. And there, in the midst of the rain and the waves, under a clearing sky, two hearts met. They discovered a love that would ripple far beyond that stormy afternoon, a love as deep and as boundless as the ocean itself. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more. The rain had been falling for hours, tapping against the caf window like a nervous heartbeat. Inside, the warmth of dim lights and the smell of fresh coffee wrapped around everyone like a comforting blanket. She had always loved the rain. It made the world pause, made conversations and glances feel heavier, more meaningful. And today, she wasn't alone in feeling that weight. Across the caf, Mara had entered like a sudden breeze, shaking droplets of rain from her short brown hair. Clara's heart skipped a beat. Mara, with her easy smile and eyes that seemed to hold secrets only she could understand. Hey, Mara said, her voice cutting through the gentle hum of the caf as she slid into the seat across from Clara. Sorry I'm late. The bus was it's always late, isn't it? Clara laughed softly, a warm sound that made Mara's shoulders relax. She pushed her notebook aside, giving Mara her full attention. I'm just glad you're here. Rain and coffee always make waiting more bearable, but you're definitely better company. Mara grinned, tucking a stray strand of damp hair behind her ear. You always know what to say, don't you? Her gaze lingered on Clara a little longer than usual, a little more intensely. It wasn't the first time they'd met like this, to friends who somehow teetered on the very edge of something more. For months, they had built a world together out of shared laughter, whispered secrets, and late-night texts that left both their hearts racing. And yet, no one had taken the step that hovered silently between them, an invisible line neither dared to cross. The air was thick with things unsaid, with possibilities that felt both thrilling and terrifying. Clara, Mara's voice was softer now, hesitant, like a candle flame flickering in a sudden draft. Can I ask you something? Clara's chest tightened. She could feel the shift in the atmosphere, the familiar comfort of their friendship giving way to a new, charged energy. Of course, she replied, her own voice barely a whisper. Mara leaned closer across the small table, her hand brushing against Clara's. The simple, accidental contact sent an unexpected jolt through her, a current of electricity that made her swallow hard, trying to mask her racing heartbeat. The scent of rain and coffee mingled with Mara's subtle perfume, creating a heady mix that clouded her thoughts. Have you ever felt like someone's been in your thoughts too much? Mara began, her eyes searching Clara's for a sign, any sign. Like every song on the radio, every silly little thing you see during the day somehow reminds you of them? Clara nodded slowly, her throat too tight to form words. The question wasn't just a question. It was a confession wrapped in a hypothetical. The words Mara didn't say hung in the air between them, heavy and unspoken, yet as clear as the rain on the windowpane. I think I've been feeling that way about you, Mara finally admitted, her voice trembling with a raw vulnerability that struck Clara to her core. For a while now, I didn't know if I should say anything. I didn't want to ruin what we have. Clara's breath caught in her chest. She had dreamed of this moment in the quiet privacy of her own mind, 100 times, 1,000 times. She had played out this exact scene in her head, but reality, she was discovering, always had a way of being more powerful, more real, more terrifyingly beautiful. Slowly, tentatively, she reached across the table, her hand finding Mara's. She intertwined their fingers, a silent answer to an honest question. I've been feeling the same, she whispered, the words finally breaking free. A wave of relief, so profound it was almost visible, washed over Mara's face. It was followed by something sweeter, a thrilling, incandescent kind of joy that made her eyes sparkle. She leaned in just slightly, a silent invitation, and Clara met her halfway, closing the distance that had always seemed so vast, so impossible to cross. The first kiss was soft, tentative, like the gentle brush of rain against the window. It was a question and an answer all at once. Then, with the quiet confidence of two hearts that had waited far too long, it deepened. Clara felt Mara's warmth, smelled the faint, familiar hint of her favorite perfume, and tasted the sweetness of something they had both longed for but had never dared to name. In that moment, time slowed to a crawl. The calf, the rain, the entire world outside seemed to fade away into a muted blur. There was only the two of them, suspended in this perfect golden bubble of discovery. When they finally, reluctantly, pulled away, their foreheads rested together, their breaths mingling in the small space between them, their eyes locked in a shared, silent understanding. Clara couldn't stop the smile that spread across her face, bright and genuine. "Why did we wait so long?" she murmured, her voice filled with a happy sort of wonder. Mara chuckled softly, a sound rich with relief and affection. "Maybe because we needed to be sure. But now I think we're ready." They sat there for a long while after that, hands still clasped tightly on the table, their hearts full and their minds spinning with the incredible possibility of what came next. Outside, the rain continued its steady, soothing rhythm against the glass, a gentle soundtrack to their new beginning. But inside the calf, the warmth that bloomed between them was unshakable, a fire that had finally been allowed to burn. It was the start of something new, something beautiful, a love that had been waiting patiently, just like them. And in that quiet golden moment, as she looked into Mara's smiling eyes, Clara knew one thing for certain. Some stories are absolutely worth the wait. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. See you in the next one. Hey, everyone, and welcome back to our deep dive into the beautiful world of Pra-on-Jira-Osal. Today, we're breaking down episode 4, and let me tell you, this was the episode we were all waiting for. The sun is definitely shining brighter on Clara and Sofía, and their connection has reached a whole new level. From the very start of this episode, you could feel the shift. All those quiet, hidden feelings they've both been holding onto are finally starting to bubble up to the surface. The creators did such an amazing job building this tension, this quiet acknowledgement between them. It's not about grand declarations. It's in the small things, the stolen glances, the way they exist in the same space. Let's talk about that scene under the golden afternoon light. It was pure cinematic poetry. When their hands brushed, did anyone else just hold their breath? The entire world seemed to just stop for a second. It was such a simple, accidental touch, but it carried so much weight. You could see it on both of their faces. That jolt of electricity, that moment of realization that this is real. This isn't just friendship anymore. The build up to the kiss was masterful. It wasn't rushed. It was all in the eyes. That silent conversation they had, where everything they've been wanting to say was communicated without a single word. Love finally found its way, and it was so earned. You've been on this journey with them, feeling their hesitation and their longing. So when their eyes finally met in that silent understanding, it was a release for us as viewers too. And then, the kiss. It was everything it needed to be. It was gentle, almost tentative at first, but filled with so much passion that had been simmering just below the surface. You could feel their nervousness, that delicate mix of fear and overwhelming desire. It was a perfect representation of a first kiss, that beautiful, awkward, and incredibly profound moment where you are at your most vulnerable, but also your most courageous. It was a culmination of their entire journey so far. This episode really captures the essence of what this series is all about. It's about authenticity. It's about the courage it takes to not just accept who you are, but to embrace it and act on it. It's about the magic of finding that one person who sees you, truly sees you, for everything that you are. Every look, every touch between Clara and Sofía in this episode felt so significant. It's a powerful reminder that love, at its core, is both incredibly simple and profoundly complex. What I love about Pra-on-Jira-Osal is how it explores love in all its different forms. It's not just about the romantic aspect, but also the love of self, the courage to be true to yourself even when it's scary. This series continues to show us that the heart really doesn't see boundaries. It loves who it loves, and that's a beautiful and powerful message. Episode 4 was a celebration of love, of authenticity, and of the incredible, heart-stopping magic of human connection. It perfectly sets the stage for what's to come, and I, for one, am on the edge of my seat. How will this kiss change their dynamic? Will they be able to navigate this new chapter of their relationship openly? There are so many questions, and I can't wait to see how they're answered. What was your favorite moment from this episode? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Clara and Sophia's journey so far. Thanks so much for watching and for being part of this community. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed the breakdown, and subscribe so you don't miss our discussion of episode 5. See you in the next one. Aninha had always felt something special whenever Mariana was around. It wasn't just her smile, or the way her laughter could light up a room. It was something deeper, something unspoken that lingered in the air between them. Their friendship had always been easy, filled with shared jokes, late-night talks, and quiet understanding. But recently, Aninha began noticing her heart racing whenever Mariana touched her hand, brushed her hair back, or simply looked at her with that warm, knowing gaze. Mariana, on the other hand, had been harboring her own secret feelings. She loved how Aninha's presence made her feel safe and alive at the same time. Every glance, every accidental touch, sent sparks through her that she could no longer ignore. For weeks, they danced around their feelings, each too shy or afraid to speak aloud what their hearts were screaming. The air between them was thick with unsaid words, a silent conversation happening in the spaces they shared. It was a beautiful yet agonizing dance of two souls moving closer, yet hesitating to take that final step. The day it happened was ordinary, yet unforgettable. They were sitting in Mariana's cozy living room, sunlight streaming through the window, casting golden hues across the wooden floor. They were talking about everything and nothing, laughing until their stomachs hurt. The atmosphere was light, familiar, and yet charged with an underlying current of anticipation. It felt like the world was holding its breath, waiting for them. Then, out of nowhere, Mariana reached for Aninha's hand. Their fingers intertwined, a simple gesture that felt monumental. Time seemed to slow. Aninha looked up, her eyes meeting Mariana's. The world outside the window faded, leaving only the two of them suspended in a bubble of longing. Without a word, Mariana leaned in, and their lips met in a sudden, electrifying kiss. It was soft at first, hesitant, as if testing the waters. Then it deepened, filled with all the unspoken emotions they had been holding back for so long: love, desire, fear, and relief, all wrapped into one. In that single moment, weeks of uncertainty melted away, replaced by the undeniable truth of their connection. They pulled back for a moment, breathless, hearts pounding in unison. Aninha could barely speak, her words caught in the whirlwind of emotions. I've wanted this for so long, she whispered, her voice a mix of awe and relief. Mariana smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that reached her eyes. She brushed a strand of hair behind Aninha's ear, a tender gesture that spoke volumes. Me too, she confessed, her voice trembling with honesty and excitement. It was a simple admission, but it held the weight of all their hidden affections, all their secret daydreams. From that moment on, everything changed. What was once a close friendship blossomed into a passionate love story. Every kiss, every tender touch, became a declaration of feelings they had hidden for so long. They spent hours exploring the new intimacy between them, discovering each other in ways they had only dreamed of. Their love wasn't just about passion, it was about trust, understanding, and acceptance. Aninha loved how Mariana made her feel seen and cherished, and Mariana adored the gentle strength Aninha brought into her life. Together, they created a world filled with warmth, laughter, and endless moments of tenderness. Even the simplest moments became magical. Holding hands while walking down the street, sharing a quiet breakfast, or curling up together to watch a movie became memories etched into their hearts. Each kiss was a promise, each embrace a testament to the love that had finally found its way to the surface. Their days were filled with stolen glances, soft whispers, and the comfortable silence that only comes with true companionship. They learned the rhythm of each other's breathing, the way their hands fit perfectly together, the sound of each other's laughter becoming a favorite melody. Though the path to this moment had been filled with uncertainty and hesitation, Aninha and Mariana now knew one thing for sure: their love was real, fierce, and unstoppable. Every kiss was not just a meeting of lips, but a merging of hearts and souls. Every moment they shared became a chapter in their unfolding story of romance, intimacy, and unbreakable connection. They marveled at how natural it all felt, as if they had been waiting their whole lives to find this peace, this exhilarating joy, with each other. And so, in that small living room where the first kiss had happened, Aninha and Mariana continued to explore the depths of their love. The world outside existed, but for them, time had stopped. Two hearts beating as one, two souls entwined, they embraced the joy and wonder of a love that had finally been allowed to bloom freely. They found strength in their vulnerability and freedom in their commitment. Their story was a reminder that sometimes, the greatest adventures begin with a single, courageous moment of honesty, a moment that can change everything, turning a lifelong friendship into an epic love. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more moments of love and connection. We'll see you in the next video. By the time Louisa reached the apartment, the rain had stopped, but the memory of the downpour still clung to her clothes, her shoes, and her heartbeat. She stood outside the door for what felt like an eternity, listening to the soft hum of music from inside. Valentina always played music when she cooked, or when she wanted to avoid thinking about something heavy. Louisa took a deep, shaky breath. Just knock, just talk. Don't run away this time. With a push, the door swung open. Valentina was in the kitchen, her back to the door. Her hair was tied up in a loose, messy bun that somehow made her look even more infuriatingly beautiful. The warm, comforting smell of garlic and butter filled the apartment, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in Louisa's chest. She swallowed the lump in her throat. Hey! Valentina froze mid-stir. She turned around slowly, her eyes narrowing just a fraction. You're late. I know. Louisa rubbed the back of her neck, a nervous habit. I lost track of time. Of course you did. Valentina turned back to the sizzling pan on the stove. You always do. There it was. Not a shout, not a harsh word, just the familiar, quiet dagger of disappointment. And somehow, that hurt more than anything. Louisa stepped further into the room, her shoes squeaking softly on the floor. Val, can we talk? No, Valentina said calmly, her voice even. Because whenever we talk, you walk away before it matters. Louisa felt that one right in her chest, a direct hit. She moved to the counter, leaning against it for support. I didn't walk away today. You came home because it stopped raining. Valentina flipped the vegetables in the pan with a sharp flick of her wrist, still refusing to meet her gaze. Not because of me. That's not fair, Louisa said, her voice barely a whisper. The pan hissed loudly in response, punctuating the tense silence between them. Finally, with a heavy sigh, Valentina turned off the stove and faced her. Then why are you here, Louisa? The question was simple. The answer wasn't. Louisa took a moment to really look at her, truly look at her. She saw the tiny, defiant sparkle in Valentina's eyes, even when she was annoyed. She saw the faint crease between her brows that she always denied having. She saw the subtle softness around her mouth when she was trying with all her might not to smile. And in that moment, the truth felt too big, too important to hide any longer. I'm here because I didn't want to lose this, Louisa whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I didn't want to lose you. Valentina's carefully constructed composure flickered. Louisa saw the slightest tremble in her breath, the briefest moment of vulnerability. You think saying that is enough? Louisa, you forget things. You forget our plans, our promises. You forget birthdays, not you. Louisa stepped closer, closing the distance between them. I never ever forget you. For the first time all night, Valentina's guard seemed to weaken. A genuine crack appeared in her armor. Then why does it feel like you do? Louisa's own voice cracked. Because I'm stupid. Valentina blinked, taken aback. What? I am, Louisa insisted, a sound that was half a laugh, half a sob escaping her lips. I'm stupid. I say the wrong things. I get scared of being happy. I pretend I'm fine when I'm falling apart inside. I mess everything up. But I swear, Val, I'm not stupid enough to let you go. A heavy, trembling silence stretched between them. Valentina just stared at her, her eyes searching Louisa's as if trying to see the truth not just in her words, but in her very bones. You can't just say dramatic things and expect me to melt, Valentina said, but her voice had lost its sharp edge. It was softer now, wavering. I'm not trying to make you melt, Louisa murmured, taking another small step forward. I need you. And that terrifies me more than anything. Valentina swallowed hard, her gaze fixed on Louisa, then stopped running. Slowly, carefully, Louisa reached out. She gently brushed her fingertips against Valentina's hand where it rested on the countertop. The touch was electric. If I stay, do you stay with me? Valentina hesitated for a heartbeat, her eyes flicking down to their hands, then back up to Louise's face. Then, slowly, she uncurled her fingers and intertwined them with Louise's. I never left. You just kept pushing me away. A wave of emotion tightened Louise's throat, making it hard to breathe. She stepped closer still, so close she could feel the warmth of Valentina's breath on her skin. I'm not pushing anymore. Valentina looked up at her expression a beautiful, heartbreaking mix of soft, conflicted, and hopeful. Louisa, yeah, don't make me regret this. Louisa leaned in until their foreheads touched, closing her eyes. I won't. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The air in the kitchen was quiet, thick with the kind of tension that only comes from years of unsaid feelings and unspoken fears. Then, Valentina's lips brushed against hers so lightly, it was like a question. Louisa answered by closing the final distance. The kiss was slow at first, hesitant and gentle, like rediscovering something precious that had been lost. Then Valentina's hand slid up to cup Louisa's jaw, her thumb stroking her cheek as she pulled her deeper into the kiss. Louisa's arms wrapped instinctively around Valentina's waist, holding her tight, feeling the familiar warmth she had missed more than she had ever dared to admit, even to herself. In that embrace, the world softened. The kitchen, the lingering scent of garlic, the argument, it all faded away. The relentless noise inside Louisa's head finally went silent. It was just them, just breathing, trembling, choosing each other all over again. When they finally, reluctantly, pulled apart, Valentina rested her head on Louisa's shoulder, her breath warm against her neck. You're still stupid, she whispered into her shirt. Louisa let out a real laugh this time, full and relieved. She pressed a kiss into Valentina's soft hair. Yeah, but I'm your stupid wife. Valentina smiled against her chest. That's the only reason I forgive you. And for the first time in a very long time, Louisa felt like she wasn't running, wasn't fighting, wasn't messing up. She was just home, exactly where she was always meant to be. Thanks for watching our story today. If you enjoyed this little moment, please give this video a like and hit that subscribe button. We love sharing these stories with you, and your support means the world to us. Let us know in the comments what you thought, and we'll see you in the next video. Have you ever been so scared to love again that you push away the one person who makes you feel alive? That's the Heart of Poisonous Love, Episode 9. This isn't just an episode. It's an emotional masterpiece, a turning point that we've all been desperately waiting for. It's where the slow-burning connection between Pat and Prem finally ignites into a fire that could either save them or shatter them completely. Let's break down every single heartbreaking, beautiful moment. The entire episode is wrapped in the haunting melody of I Wanna Love Again by Jobber. It's more than just background music. It's the voice of Pat and Prem's hidden desires. It's the sound of two wounded souls yearning for a second chance at love, even when everything in them screams to run away. We start with Pat, our queen of emotional walls. She's been hurt before, and her scars are deep. Her strategy? Keep everyone at a distance. She tries to convince not just Prem, but herself, that this growing feeling between them means nothing. She's cold, she's distant, she's trying so hard to be unbothered. But Prem, our gentle but incredibly resilient fighter, sees right through it. She doesn't get angry. She gets heartbroken. In one of the most vulnerable scenes yet, Prem confronts Pat, her voice soft but firm, asking the one question that hangs between them. Why do you keep pushing me away when you know this is real? Pat's silence is her only defense. She can't look Prem in the eye, because if she does, the truth will spill out. The truth that she thinks about Prem constantly, that she's terrified of how much she already cares. This push and pull dynamic is what makes their chemistry so powerful. It's the classic battle between fear and desire, and we're watching it unfold in real time. And then, we get to that scene, the moment the entire fandom has been holding their breath for. Pat and Prem are finally alone. The lighting is soft, the room is quiet, but the air is thick with everything they haven't said. You can feel the tension, the raw, unfiltered emotion trembling between them. Pat tries one last time to escape. She makes a move to leave, her body language screaming that she's not worthy of this, that she'll only end up hurting Prem. But this time, Prem doesn't let her run. She closes the distance, step by agonizingly slow step. She's not demanding anything. She's simply offering her heart, laid bare. With a crack in her voice, Prem admits she doesn't want to lose her. She tells Pat she knows she's scared, she knows she's been hurt, but she believes they can heal together if they just take the risk. And that's when Pat finally breaks. The walls she spent years building come crashing down in an instant. Her voice is barely a whisper as she confesses the truth she's been hiding from everyone, including herself. She's not afraid of Prem. She's terrified of how deeply, how completely she has already fallen for her. The fear isn't about getting hurt by Prem. It's about the intensity of her own feelings. The atmosphere becomes electric. All defenses are gone. It's just two souls exposed and vulnerable. Their hands brush against each other, a hesitant, trembling touch that sends shockwaves through the screen. And then, in a move that changes everything, Pat reaches out. She doesn't just lean in. She pulls Prem closer, closing that final inch of separation. The kiss. Oh, that kiss. It's not just a kiss. It's a confession. It's surrender. It's a silent promise. It's slow. It's emotional. And it is filled with all the fear and relief of two people who have been running from love, only to find it in each other. It starts soft, almost tentative, as if they're testing the waters. Then, it deepens, filled with all the longing and ache they've been carrying. The way Pat holds on to Prem, it's like she's been starved for this kind of affection, this safety. And the way Prem holds her back, offering warmth and reassurance, is just beautiful. It's the kind of passionate, soul-deep connection that leaves you breathless. What happens after the kiss is just as important. There's no rush. They don't pull away. They just stay there, foreheads touching, sharing the same air, finally at peace. Prem whispers that she wants Pat to stay, not just for the night, but in her life. And Pat, still shaken but no longer fighting, simply nods. In that moment, for the very first time, she chooses love over fear. The episode ends with them sitting together, fingers intertwined, in a quiet moment of shared vulnerability. Their journey is far from over, and their love story isn't a fairy tale. It's called poisonous love for a reason, because a love this intense can feel dangerous, especially for hearts that have already been broken. But they are choosing to fight for it. They are choosing each other. This episode is a powerful reminder that love isn't always easy or gentle. Sometimes it breaks you open and forces you to confront your deepest fears. But it's also the one thing that can teach you how to heal, how to trust, and how to love again. Pat and Prem are the living proof that even after the darkest chapters, you can find someone who makes your heart brave enough to try again. What did you all think of that scene? I was literally screaming at my screen. Let me know your favorite moments in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into our favorite series. Thanks for watching. Alice had always believed she understood control. She knew its boundaries, its negotiations, the quiet give and take that shaped every relationship she'd ever entered. Control was a language she spoke fluently, a comfortable rhythm she could always find. But the moment she stepped into the rehearsal loft of Heartwarming, that understanding shattered. Control shifted like a tide she didn't see coming, pulling her into an unfamiliar current. Because standing there, adjusting a spotlight with the calm, unwavering authority of someone who owned the entire room, was Nanolin. Nanolin was confident, precise, alluring in a way that felt thrillingly dangerous. She moved with an economy of motion that spoke volumes, every gesture purposeful. Alice froze in the doorway, her fingers tightening around the strap of her bag, suddenly feeling like an intruder in her own space. The old wooden floor creaked under her shoes, a small sound that echoed in the vast, quiet loft. Nanolin turned, her expression of cool, intense focus softening into something else intrigued amusement. The corners of her lips tilted just slightly. "You're late," Nanolin said. Her voice wasn't harsh or accusatory. It was simply a statement of fact, a rule laid out without apology, clear and direct. Alice instinctively lifted her chin, a flicker of her usual defiance surfacing. "Traffic. And for the record, I'm not usually late." "I hope not," Nanolin responded, her voice smooth as she began to walk closer. Her steps were silent, graceful, closing the distance between them with an unnerving ease. "If we're going to work together, you'll find I expect a certain discipline." The word hung in the air, wrapping itself around Alice like silk and steel at the same time. Discipline. It was a word she associated with rigid structure, with limitations. But the way Nanolin said it, it sounded like a promise of something deeper, something more profound. The pilot project they were working on was titled Under Her Rules. It was meant to be a daring, artistic blend of choreography and storytelling, an intimate duet exploring the complex dance of tension, distance, and ultimate surrender. Alice, with her raw, expressive movement, had been cast as the emotional core. Nanolin, the project's renowned artistic director, was the architect. She was known for creating scenes that felt almost surreal, blurring the line between performance and genuine experience. Alice was about to find out exactly why. After a brief, efficient warm-up, Nanolin crossed her arms, her posture radiating an effortless command. She nodded toward the center of the floor. "Begin," she instructed. "Show me what surrender means to you." Alice took a deep, steadying breath, and she danced. Her movements were soft, searching, her body curving in thoughtful, introspective arcs. She was trying to interpret the concept, to perform it. But before she could lose herself in the motion, she felt a presence behind her. Nanolin had stepped into her space, placing one hand firmly on her shoulder blade and the other lightly, almost imperceptibly, at her waist. "Not like that," Nanolin murmured, her voice a low vibration against Alice's skin. "You're hesitating." Alice stiffened, her muscles tensing under Nanolin's touch. "I'm not." "You are." Nanolin's fingers applied the slightest pressure, guiding her hips into a different alignment. It wasn't a correction of form, but of intention. "You want to keep control even while you're pretending to give it up. I can see you thinking about every move instead of feeling it." Their eyes met in the wide studio mirror. Alice saw her own defiance reflected back, a stubborn pride she couldn't hide. And beside it, she saw Nanolin's quiet, unshakable command. It wasn't a challenge, it was an observation. And in that moment of stark honesty, something inside Alice cracked open. A defense she hadn't even known was there began to crumble. The hours that followed were a blur of intense, focused work. It was less like a rehearsal and more like a deconstruction. There were constant corrections, subtle redirections, and moments where Nanolin would hold Alice's gaze just a fraction of a second too long, causing Alice to forget the next step, her breath catching in her throat. It wasn't the choreography that unsettled her. She was a professional. She could learn any sequence. It was the unnerving way Nanolin seemed to see right through her, stripping away every defensive layer, every carefully constructed wall she didn't know she still carried from past heartbreaks and disappointments. Nanolin wasn't just directing her body, she was directing her soul. When they finally took a break, the sun had dipped low beyond the studio's massive arched windows. The fading light cast a warm, golden glow across the room, bathing Nanolin in soft amber. She looked less like a director and more like a figure from a painting, and Alice found herself staring, completely captivated, without meaning to. "You're thinking too much again," Nanolin said, her voice pulling Alice from her reverie. She had sat down on the floor beside her, their proximity creating a small, intimate space in the large loft. Alice let out a short, breathy laugh. "How do you always know what I'm thinking?" Nanolin's subtle smile deepened, reaching her eyes this time. "I watch people. It's my job. And you? You're surprisingly easy to read when you finally let your guard down." The comment was so direct, so perceptive, it left Alice with no defense. "And what if I don't want to surrender?" she asked, the question more genuine than she intended. "What if I don't want to let my guard down?" Nanolin leaned just a little closer, the space between them shrinking, crackling with a new energy. "Everyone surrenders to something, Alice," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. Eventually, the line should have sounded dramatic, a glitch from a movie script. But coming from Nanolin, it felt like an undeniable, fundamental truth. It felt like a premonition. Rehearsal resumed, but everything had changed. The air was different. Their duet was no longer just a piece of choreography, it was pure electricity. It was a conversation happening without words. When Nanolin's hand guided Alice's, Alice felt it like a pulse traveling up her spine. When their bodies brushed against each other in the fluid, intricate movements, it was no longer just contact. It was a connection. And when their faces came inches apart in the final, climactic sequence, the scripted tension blurred with something undeniably real, something that had been building between them all afternoon. "The scene ends here," Nanolin whispered, her breath a warm caress against Alice's cheek. The instruction was part of the direction, but it felt deeply personal. "But don't move until I say." Alice held perfectly still, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She was aware of everything. The scent of Nanolin's perfume, the heat radiating from her body, the intensity in her dark eyes. Seconds stretched into an eternity. The world seemed to shrink down to just the two of them, suspended in that single moment. Then, slowly, deliberately, Nanolin lifted Alice's chin with 2 fingers. The touch was delicate yet firm, precise. It was the same control she had exhibited all day, but now it felt different. It felt like an invitation. "Good," she whispered, her voice husky. "You finally stopped fighting." Alice wasn't sure who made the first movement. Maybe Nanolin leaned in. Maybe Alice rose to meet her. Or maybe, in perfect unison, they both closed the last remaining inch of space at the exact same time. The kiss wasn't aggressive or dramatic. It wasn't a passionate clash. It was controlled, slow, exploratory. It was a negotiation where neither of them wanted to win, full of unspoken questions and tentative answers. It was a surrender. When they finally pulled apart, Alice was breathless, her mind reeling. The silence of the loft rushed back in. "That wasn't in the choreography," she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. "I know," Nanolin replied, her own voice low and rich. Her gaze, which had been so commanding all day, had softened into something vulnerable, something real. "But it's where the story wanted to go. And maybe," she paused, her eyes searching Alice's, "where you wanted to go too." And Alice couldn't deny it. She couldn't lie to Nanolin, and she couldn't lie to herself. This pilot project, under her rules, wasn't just a performance anymore. It was the beginning of something dangerous, magnetic, and completely, utterly irresistible. And for the very first time in her life, surrender didn't feel like losing. It felt like choosing. It felt like coming home. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. See you soon. The neon lights of the underground club flickered like electric fireflies as the bass trembled through the floor. High in her private booth, Reina, known to everyone as the Queen, sat like a true monarch, feared, admired, untouchable. Her cold gaze swept across the crowd below, a kingdom of shadows and secrets she ruled with an iron will. Tonight should have felt like any other, power at her fingertips, loyalty at her feet, and danger wrapped around her like a familiar crown. But tonight, something was different. Something was off. For the first time in years, the Queen felt her own heartbeat falter. And it was all because she had walked in. Lena Cantasri, the Queen's most trusted runner, a woman whispered about in the shadows. Smart, quiet, and far too brave for her own good. She was the only person who ever dared to meet Reina's eyes without a trace of fear. As Lena approached the booth, her leather jacket caught the club's blue strobe lights, making her stand out in the sea of faces. She carried a sealed envelope. Everyone probably assumed it was evidence, or maybe payment. But Reina, who missed nothing, noticed something else. Lena's fingers were trembling. "Kun Queen," Lena said softly, her voice barely a whisper above the music. "A word. Alone." Reina almost smiled. Almost. She dismissed her guards with a flick of her hand. Each one hesitated, their reluctance clear. No one ever left the Queen unprotected. Except, of course, when she wanted it that way. When the two women were finally alone, the heavy bass of the club feeling like a distant heartbeat, Lena placed the envelope on the polished table. "It's not money," she whispered, her eyes fixed on Reina's. "It's something I shouldn't have found." Reina leaned in, intrigued. The air between them grew heavy with unspoken tension. "Then why bring it to me?" she asked, her voice low and smooth. "Because it concerns you," Lena replied, her gaze unwavering. "And because I trust you more than anyone else." Reina froze. Trust. That was a word she hadn't heard spoken with any real honesty in years. Not from her allies, not from her lovers, and certainly not from the enemies who pretended to be both. Lena continued, her voice urgent. "Your enemies. They're planning to overthrow you. Within the week, I overheard everything." Reina's jaw tightened. Betrayal was a language she knew all too well, a currency she traded in daily. And yet, when Lena spoke, her words didn't taste like lies. There was a raw sincerity in her warning that Reina couldn't ignore. "What do you want in return?" Reina asked, the question automatic, a reflex honed by years of navigating this treacherous world. Lena's eyes, which had been so serious, suddenly softened. They were warm, intense, and completely unguarded. It was a look that stripped away all of Reina's defenses. "Nothing," Lena said. "I don't want your money. I don't want a title. I didn't want you to get hurt." For a moment, the deafening noise of the club seemed to dim into silence. The Queen's carefully constructed composure, her impenetrable mask, began to crack in places no one else had ever even seen. "Lena," she murmured, her own name for this woman sounding foreign on her tongue. Why do you care so much? Lena swallowed hard, her chest rising and falling with emotions she had clearly kept buried for a long, long time. Because I'm tired of pretending, she confessed, her voice thick with feeling. Tired of acting like you're just my boss, when the truth is, I look for you in every room. I listen for your voice even when you're not talking. And when you're gone, everything feels wrong. The queen, the woman feared across the entire city, the ruler of this underground empire, suddenly forgot how to breathe. The confession hung in the air, more dangerous than any threat, more valuable than any treasure. You're playing a dangerous game, Raina whispered. The warning meant as much for herself as it was for Lena. I know, Lena replied, a hint of defiance in her tone. But I'd rather risk everything than spend another night lying to myself. Raina stood, the movement fluid and graceful, and stepped closer until their breaths mixed in the dim, pulsing light of the booth. Her fingers, cool and steady, gently lifted Lena's chin, forcing their eyes to meet. You shouldn't want me, she said, but her voice trembled, betraying the conflict raging inside her. I ruin everything I touch. Lena's eyes shone with unshed tears, but also with a strength that took Raina's breath away. Then ruin me, she said, her voice clear and sure. I'd still choose you. Raina gasped, a quiet, sharp intake of breath. The boldness, the sincerity, the raw, unadulterated love hidden beneath those words shattered the last of her defenses. And in that moment, the queen, cold, calculating, untouchable, finally broke. She cupped Lena's face with both hands, her touch surprisingly gentle, and pulled her in. Their lips met softly at first, like a question, a moment of hesitation. And then, Raina deepened the kiss. It was fierce and hungry, her control slipping away with every passing second. All the power, all the loneliness, all the suppressed longing poured into that one kiss. Lena's hands wrapped around Raina's waist, drawing her closer, grounding her, claiming her in a way no one ever had. The kiss was intoxicating, a dizzying mix of danger and desperation. In it, Raina tasted the vulnerability she had never allowed herself to show, the passion she had always kept locked away, and a terrifying, undeniable truth. She wanted Lena, needed her, more than power, more than loyalty, more than the throne itself. When they finally pulled away, breathless and dazed, Raina rested her forehead against Lena's, the world slowly coming back into focus. What happens now? Lena whispered, her voice shaky. Raina brushed a thumb across Lena's lips, the lips she had just kissed, the lips that had just changed everything. Now, she said, her voice returning to its low, dangerous purr, but with a new undercurrent of possessiveness. Now you stay close to me, closer than anyone. Lena's lips curved into a small, teasing smile. Is that an order? She asked, her boldness returning. No, Raina's eyes softened, a warmth blooming in their icy depths that was reserved only for Lena. It's a promise. Just then, a new beat pulls through the club, louder, heavier, like a war drum sounding a warning. Raina knew the fight for her throne was about to begin. The betrayals, the bloodshed, the chaos, it was all coming. But now, for the first time, she wouldn't be fighting alone. Lena gripped her hand, her touch firm and reassuring. Whatever comes next, she said, her gaze steady and full of resolve, we face it together. Raina nodded, squeezing her hand back, a silent vow passing between them. My dangerous girl, she murmured. And for the first time in her life, the queen wasn't afraid of losing her crown. She was terrified of losing the woman who had just stolen her heart. Thanks so much for watching. If you loved this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next.